Hi, this is Logan Bakken and Logan Sanger's presentation. We had based our theme off of strategy games and using BlueJ, a, uh, a Java compiler system. We were able to create a two-person game.
So what our game is we decided to go on a maze game that is tile based, and so the entire gimmick is that each player would take turns moving their own respective piece, and we called it Maze War.
So the maps currently we have are two of them. And they are somewhat randomly generated, where the end goal is in the center and is shown, but the visibility of the actual map is limited. We did this by making a ellipse as as almost a lighting system.
Yeah, so we had essentially the entire black box across the screen would was initially made, and then there was an ellipse made, which would there's a command which you can remove from an area. So we just remove the ellipse from the area to create this lighting effect. So everything is loaded underneath the black box, except with the ellipse you can only see around you.
Yes, and and for maps we had used a separate feature. We had made a class that connects outside of the original game runner, that went by the name of barriers. This probably was the longest part of it because it was just very tedious to write all of the tiles. But thankfully, we didn't have to do a lot of super hard math because Logan had or we had found a simple system that was able to give us the tile size based off of how we wanted to make it, which was a 19 by 15 grid.
Yep. And so essentially the way Game Runner uses that is by using all the array list of rectangles and barriers, drawing them, and then checking if anything's inside it, and if so, it'll move to the previous position, as why player 1 and player 2 previous positions are stored. And if they were to be found in there, then they would be moved back and then take another turn, so essentially, from a player perspective, nothing happened.
Yes. We had also had to develop multiple things such as systems in which two characters collide, making kind of rudimentary hitboxes, as well as originally figuring out how we get the characters to only move the intended amount instead of zipping across the map, which we found a lot of very good online sources that taught us about creating basically in-game frames and clocks, as well as things like try and catch, which help with those errors that normally show up, and basically getting rid of them so they don't bother us. And then Logan, do you want to go into how the update system works?
Yeah, so essentially update is what, each time you run through the game loop, update is called, and that will, check a bunch of different things. So if, a player escaped, then they get moved out. If somebody won, then it'll update. And so this is, essentially our not core game loop, except this is, where, all, the fancy stuff happens, where, it checks for things.
Yes.
While run is, you enter and, run is what's looped every time, except run calls update.
Yes. And then, yeah. So these have all of our player inputs, which are used by key handler, which uses the key event, the VK underscore, and the various different types of inputs. We found that one issue with key runner on our Chromebooks was the fact that they did not register the numbers for letter keys, as they only showed up as 0. Thankfully, arrow keys worked, which means we were able to progress and use this in like the Chromebook a little more, but it just kind of takes away from what we normally do, which is for me at least, I like playing on keyboard. So WASD is like kind of a common feeling to have for like a key input. It just sometimes feels weird when we can't use it.
Alright, so the core game is just, as I said before, making your way through the center of the maze. And each time both players leave, then a new map is generated, and whoever left first would gain a point. And so, as I said before, we only have 2 maps, and it would randomly choose between the 2, instead of swapping in or out, as we did plan on having more maps, but time limitations caused us to not meet that requirement.
I mean, we were able to get some maps in, but just not enough. Right. What you just saw there was the process of our map. Hang on. Let me move this up. Was the process of our map switching. And the way we got the characters to move basically away from the map and not show up in the barrier was we took the player position and set it off or placed it in like a far off position. Kind of used a lot in a lot of games that have open world maps or certain areas where they will take the player models and set them far away from the rest of the map, basically making it easier for character sprites and models to get out of the way. This is just how we get it so that the boxes, they don't collide when they're in that center bit, which is the end goal.
And so you see blue just left, so he is now gone along with his light, and so now orange just needs to make his way to the center, and then blue would gain a point. And so what we did is we checked it if a player reaches the square, and then if he would there was a boolean, there was an integer which would check which player would have exited first, and it stores that until the next round, in which at the end of the round then that player would gain a point. So now if, say, blue were to score 3 points, then that is the win condition of the game. So if both players were to make their way to the center of the map and blue were to reach there first, then the game would be over.
Yes. Do we have anything else to add? I'm trying to think. A lot of it was done outside of class, because a lot of time spent in class was learning about certain coding mechanics, getting help from others. What you just see here right now is the win screen, and so it's telling us to click the X in the corner to exit, and that will close out of the code.
Mm-hmm.
There was something you mentioned a while ago about having to originally trying to just have a whole other screen that would just be the title screen.
Yeah, so essentially what I try to do is I try to make a J button, or at least a window full of J buttons, which would give all like, oh, you click this to play the game, you click this for info. Except that ended up being very, very, I wouldn't say complicated, but very, very awkward, and I didn't know how to do it. So, well, I guess I sort of knew how to do it. So, essentially the title screen initially was just another window. But problem was that it would generate infinite amounts of windows, and once you beat the game, if you X out of the game, then it'll just bring you back to the start screen, along with still being able to generate multiple games at the same time, which is not very good for the virtual machine. It does not like to run that.
Yeah. Thankfully, we got it to run under one window, so it's a lot simpler.
Yep, we used enums, which would just check. It would start at the title screen, and then so it would draw everything to do with the title screen, and it would change to say like a running state or an info state or a win state.
Yeah.
I believe it's upward in the code. Yep, right there. So enum states, and this is what we would store. So it would start at title, and then throughout the game, say you press enter at the title screen, so it would check if it's at the title screen. If you hit enter, then it would start running.
And then the last part we probably haven't mentioned yet is the reprint part of the runner, which is exactly how it sounds like. It takes all of the components that we found in update, and we basically, hang on.
No, this is it. It's just depending on which state it's in, it'll print out something different.
Oh yeah. But yeah, it basically resets. It sets certain player locations as well as different variables into what they're supposed to be, based off the inputs that were given, and then it gets rid of it at the very end of it because it basically needs to like dispose of it before it can draw new stuff. I believe that's it. Is there anything else that we need to go over about the main thing?
I mean, the class main, there isn't really much in there. It's just adding stuff to a window, and it would add a game runner to it, which has all the data and stuff.
Yeah, it just sets the main title stuff.
Oh, the reason it says tank battle is because we initially wanted this to be like a tank game.
Yeah, that was not changed. Definitely something we can change. Very easy to do. It's just the title for like the main window, which is this bit right here.
We just didn't have a need to switch out main because Game Runner had all the info we need.
Yeah, main was just there to set up basically everything, basically Game Runner in a sense. It's something just to call upon everything else because I don't think you can't directly call it from here, but you can call this this void main, which connects to the rest of this. All right.
I think that's pretty much it.
Yeah. Great. Thank you for watching this. I don't know how to say goodbye. I don't.
I think that works.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks for watching.